warheads. I wish we had never built the damn things, but it is the best, most useful decommissioning of a weapons system I know of.
Michael Brune, how do you interpret the policy signals that are coming out of Washington right now? I'm confused. On the one hand, we have President Obama talking about the need to build more nuclear power plants and seeming to be behind expanding the federal loan guarantee program. On the other hand, we have him shutting down the Yucca Mountain repository. Where is the Obama administration on nuclear power, and where would you like them to be?
Well, I think you can find the Obama administration on almost every side of the argument right now. Yesterday, the Obama administration had a summit on nuclear proliferation. So, on the one hand, there's $54 billion in loan guarantees, and on the other hand, we're trying to get control of the nuclear material that's already out there. So I see it as a huge problem. I need to say a couple things because there have been a few things that I would find objection to. But there's one point of agreement that I wanted to highlight because I think it's going to be the only one we find the next half hour or so, which is just that I have to say I was totally surprised that anyone would come up here and make an argument for nuclear power using human health. That was bold. But it's good to hear that displacing coal is a top priority. The American Lung Association says that pollution from coal-fired power plants kills 24,000 Americans every year. It kills 24,000 Americans every year. So it's good to hear you say that we need to displace coal. Would have been good to hear that a little bit more when you were working for the last president, but it's good to hear it. It's good to hear it now.
You weren't listening to my speeches.
I was watching what you were doing.
You weren't supporting it.
So there's a couple things that really have to be entered into this argument about nuclear power. One is cost. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that 50% of the loan guarantees given to the nuclear power industry are likely to fail. So taxpayers will bear the cost, according to this estimate, for at least half of the loans that are being given out. There's a reason why Wall Street is not investing in nuclear power, because it's not economical and it's not a safe investment. I can understand why we're having this conversation. I can understand why groups like Union of Concerned Scientists, why some environmental groups, why Stewart, who I have a lot of respect for, is taking a new approach to nuclear power and trying to find a way in which it might work. I can understand that urgency. And the urgency is, of course, coming from the fact that if we don't find a way to curtail carbon emissions, if we don't find a way to get to a zero carbon power future, life on the planet as we know it will end. We'll cook the planet, literally. The only reason to invest in nuclear power, however, is because we've tried it before. Because we know that it can work. We know that it can produce power. It's not a compelling reason. We have to rise to the challenge as a species. We have to rise to this challenge as a country. We know that there is enough solar power in this country. We've all heard this debate before. We know that there's enough solar power in this country to meet our entire electricity demand. We know that there's enough wind in this country to meet our entire electricity demand. We know that that would require massive investments. We know that that would require significant changes in technology, investments in transmission. We also know that it would create more jobs. We also know that it would improve human health. You don't hear about people getting sick because of a wind spill, wind turbine spill. So there's significant
birds
benefits.
Have had some issues with the wind turbines. But
yes, birds would find some problems. And I apologize to the bird population out there for investing more in wind. My point here is that we have the biggest thing that we need is political will. The best way to tell the future is what investments you're making in infrastructure today, since we want a future in which our power is coming from clean, safe, reliable power resources. Making further investments in nuclear power today is a big mistake.
David Crane or David Dunning, Michael says that the federal loan guarantee program is a little bit of an illusion, that it's going to cost us far more money than we've been led to believe. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I would say, first, I haven't heard the statistic from the CBO. I find it hard to believe that they're assuming a 50% default ratio. I'm almost certain that that's not accurate. And this idea that only the nuclear industry gets loan guarantees and that Wall Street is the arbiter of this, as our friends from BrightSource would tell us, Wall Street's not investing in solar thermal now. Wall Street's not investing in offshore wind now. So the only difference between the loan guarantees being offered to the renewable industry and the nuclear industry is that the nuclear industry is actually going to pay the risk premium that comes with the loan guarantee, while under Section 703, the renewable industry gets it for free. So the whole argument that the nuclear is getting something and that renewables are not is just blatantly inaccurate. Beyond that, I mean, look, from a perspective of the environmental movement, if the environmental movement wants to trade in idealism, I think that's great, but I'm just a poor businessman. I deal in realism. And the realism is that you cannot count on a fractional part of the country's energy mix, wind and solar, to be the solution. And we haven't even talked about the intermittency of these resources. We haven't even talked about that in our core market, where Texas, which has built more wind power than any other state, the wind doesn't blow at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when everyone in Texas air conditioners are on. And I'm not a regulated utility. There's no doubt that when the loan guarantee, if our project goes bad, the taxpayer will bear the risk. But right now, everything we're doing is at the risk of NRG shareholders. It's not at the risk of the American public. But I would say when Lou Hay gets up here tomorrow, for people who want to deal with idealism, ask him what it's like to be the CEO of a utility when the lights go out in a state and the governor calls you up screaming mad because his or her political future depends on that utility keeping those lights on. And whether that head of the utility is going to depend on an intermittent resource like wind and solar. So I'm not against wind and solar. I mean, we're investing millions and millions of dollars, but we've got to keep all this thing in proportion. And we need low carbon or no carbon baseload generation in this country. And right now, for our company's point of view, we started as being agnostic between nuclear and clean coal. And we spend tens of millions of dollars looking at various clean coal technologies. And right now, we're putting most of our chips on nuclear because we think clean coal is 20 years behind. And the fact that nuclear exists on this world, rather than sort of dismiss it, it's an old technology, I say embrace the fact that we have a zero carbon baseload generation that we can put in now because the world scientists are telling us we have no time. Mm-hmm. We've got to get this solved in the next 40 years, and that's where the dry cask storage comes in. Mm-hmm. We can think about the waste disposal issue.
Stewart, I'll come right back to you. David, did you have something you wanted to say?
Well, I get the pleasure, I guess, of looking at this through the EPC eyes, so I'd like everybody to sort this out so we can design something and build it. Mm-hmm. However, the reality is this, as we see it. We work with all kinds of companies across a broad range of industries, and Fluor is a reasonably green company. We won an award on that last year, and we're out there designing and building solar, concentrated solar power, getting prepared to do that, PV, the world's largest offshore wind, and we think that is entirely appropriate. However, I also like to always remind myself about grid stability, and we have a certain complexity within our U.S.